On October 15, 1944, three American P-51 Mustangs took off from Bodney Airfield in England for a routine patrol over occupied Belgium. The weather was perfect. The pilots were experienced. The planes were serviced and fueled. They never came back. No distress signals were received. No enemy engagement was reported. No wreckage was found. Lieutenants Daniel Garrett, Francis Holbrook, and Robert Whelan simply vanished from the sky at 14:47, their radio transmissions cutting off mid-sentence. The Army searched for 2 weeks before declaring them missing, presumed dead, their families buried empty coffins. But in 2009, excavation for a Belgian wind farm uncovered something 12 feet beneath a field that had been untouched since the war. 3 P-51 Mustangs arranged in a perfect defensive triangle, their fuselages intact, their pilots still strapped in their seats. The planes hadn't crashed. They'd been buried. When investigators opened Danny Garrett's cockpit, they found his remains clutching a torn journal page against his chest, for words written in his shaking hand. They made us disappear. Before we dive into this chilling story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and give this video a like so you never miss more mysterious vanishings and unbelievable discoveries. October 5th, 2019, Indianapolis. Emma Garrett stood in her childhood home, staring at a trunk she'd never seen before. Her father's funeral had been that morning. Sudden heart attack, no warning, gone at 75. Now she was sorting through his things, finding the predictable remnants of a quiet life. Tax returns, photo albums. His reading glasses still bookmarked in a Tom Clancy novel he'd never finish. The trunk was in the attic, shoved behind Christmas decorations and boxes labeled Emma school things. Military green padlocked, her grandfather's name stenciled on the side. Lieutenant Daniel Garrett, USAF. She'd never known it existed. The padlock was rusted but cheap. 3 hits with a hammer, and it cracked open. Inside, the smell hit her first. Old leather and gun oil, something metallic and preserved. Her grandfather's dress uniform folded with military precision. His wings, his purple heart, which confused her. He'd never come home wounded. He'd never come home at all. Beneath the medals, a leather journal, its pages yellowed but intact. The first entry was dated October 1st, 1944. Her grandfather's handwriting, careful and slanted. 2 weeks until we ship out to Bodney. Frankie says the Germans are finished. That will be home by Christmas. Bobby believes him. They're good boys, both of them. Best wingmen a pilot could ask for. If something happens to me, at least Margaret will know I flew with brothers. Emma sat on the attic floor, reading by the light of her phone. She'd grown up knowing only the basics. Her grandfather had died in the war. His plane was never found. Her grandmother Margaret had remarried in 1947 to the man Emma had called Grandpa Bill. But this journal made Danny Garrett real. 24 years old, missing his pregnant wife, worried about his friends. She flipped ahead, scanning entries about missions, close calls, and descriptions of England that sounded like another planet. Then she found the entry from October 14th, 1944. The handwriting was different here. Pressed hard into the page, the ink darker, the strokes uneven. Something's wrong with tomorrow's patrol. Changed last minute. No explanation. We're being sent over Sector 7, which has been restricted for 2 months. Colonel Morrison called me paranoid, but Frankie noticed it too. The coordinates don't match any known German positions. We're not hunting anything out there. Bobby's nervous. Kid's got instincts like a cat, and he's been pacing all evening. Says his teeth hurt, which is what he always says when something bad's coming. Emma's heart raced as she read on, told him it's a routine patrol. Nothing special. Didn't mention that someone came for our gun cameras this afternoon. Took them for maintenance. In 13 months, nobody's ever touched our gun cameras before patrol. If something happens tomorrow, tell Margaret The entry stopped mid-sentence. Emma turned the page. Blank. Every page after October 14th was empty, except for one thing, a photograph tucked into the back cover. 3 young men in flight suits, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. Someone had written on the back, Danny, Frankie, Bobby. October 14th, 1944. Last night at the Eagle's Nest. The last night, her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Karen about estate paperwork. Emma ignored it, staring at the photograph. Her grandfather was a tall one in the middle, movie star handsome, dark hair. Her father's exact same crooked smile. Frankie Holbrook on his left, stalkier, laughing at something off camera. Bobby Whelan on the right, barely out of his teens, trying to look tough, but his eyes gave him away. He was scared. They'd all been scared. Emma pulled out her laptop and began searching for information about the missing patrol. The official record was sparse. 3 P-51 Mustangs lost over Belgium, October 15, 1944. No enemy contact reported. Search efforts unsuccessful. Presumed shot down by anti-aircraft fire. But her grandfather had written they weren't hunting anything. The route had been changed. The gun cameras removed. She kept digging, cross-referencing squadron records, mission logs, anything digitized from the 357 Fighter Group. Hours passed, her fingers numb, eyes straining in the glow of the screen. Then she found it, buried in a database of declassified documents. A report filed October 16, 1944, by Colonel James Morrison. Lieutenants Garrett, Holbrook, and Whelan failed to return from routine patrol. Last radio contact at 1447 indicated no enemy engagement. Search teams found no wreckage in assigned patrol sector. Recommendation: list as MIA, presumed Kia. No further resources to be allocated to recovery. Emma stared. One day. They'd search for one day. She felt anger rising, sudden, irrational fury at this Colonel Morrison who had written her grandfather, Frankie, and Bobby off so quickly. She searched his name, found his service record. Promoted to general after the war. Died in 1978, full military honors, buried at Arlington. But then she saw something else, a footnote in his biography. Morrison had been investigated in 1946 for irregularities in wartime intelligence operations, cleared of all charges. The details were still classified. Emma leaned back in her chair, the weight of it all pressing down. This wasn't just 3 men lost in the fog of war. Someone had known more. Someone had covered it up. Emma's search brought her to an article buried in the archives of a Belgian newspaper from 2009. The headline caught her breath. Wind Farm Construction unearths 3 World War II fighter planes. She clicked. The article described how workers near Liege had struck metal 12 feet down. At first, they thought it was a buried fuel tank. But when the excavation crew widened the hole, they saw the wing of a P-51 Mustang. Then another, then a third. The planes had been arranged nose outward in a defensive triangle, as if waiting for an attack that never came. Their fuselages were intact, their cockpits sealed, and inside each one, skeletal remains still strapped to seats. Emma's chest tightened as she read on. Lieutenant Francis Holbrook, Lieutenant Robert Whelan, Lieutenant Daniel Garrett, her grandfather. The article mentioned the most chilling detail. In Daniel Garrett's cockpit, investigators have found a torn page from a journal clutched against his chest. For words written in a desperate, shaking hand. They made us disappear. Emma's hands trembled. She looked again at her grandfather's journal in front of her. The entries stopped on October 14th. The next day, October 15th, he had vanished, only to be buried in secret, hidden for 65 years. Why had no one told their families? Why had the official report said, no wreckage found? Someone had lied. And someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to erase the truth. Emma barely slept that night. The image of the buried planes wouldn't leave her mind, nor the words her grandfather had scrawled in his final moments. They made us disappear. The next morning, she called the Belgian Historical Society listed in the article. Her emails bounced. The phone number had been disconnected. It was as though the archive itself had been scrubbed. Frustrated, she posted a question on a World War II aviation forum, attaching the newspaper clipping. Hours later, a private message appeared. Stop digging unless you're ready for the truth. WG. Emma frowned. She wrote back instantly. Who are you? Minutes passed. Then the reply. Walter Griggs. 94 years old, 357 Fighter Group, same squadron as your grandfather. I flew the day they vanished. I know what happened. Meet me? 2 weeks later, Emma sat in the kitchen of a small, cluttered house in Dayton, Ohio. The walls were lined with photographs of young men in flight suits, faded squadron patches, and yellowing maps of Europe. Walter Griggs was frail, his hands trembling as he poured tea. But his eyes were sharp, the same eyes that had once scanned skies for enemy fighters. "I shouldn't be telling you this," he said. "They told us to keep quiet. Threatened us. But I'm too old to be scared now. Your grandfather was my friend. He deserves better than lies." Emma leaned forward. What really happened that day? Walter's gaze drifted to the photographs on his wall. They weren't shot down. They weren't lost. They were ordered into restricted airspace. Sector 7. We all knew something was wrong. None of us had clearance for that sector, not even Morrison. But command pushed it through. He sipped his tea, his hand shaking. I heard their voices on the radio. Danny, Frankie, Bobby. They sounded confused, like they'd seen something they couldn't explain. Then silence. Just cut off. Emma whispered. The report said no enemy engagement. Walter gave a bitter laugh. Of course it did. That's the official line. But I saw the cover-up begin the same day. Gun camera footage confiscated. Mission logs rewritten. They buried the truth along with those boys. He reached for an old leather-bound notebook and slid it across the table. I kept this hidden all these years. Pages they didn't get to. Inside were coded notes, scraps of intercepted orders, and one thing that made Emma's pulse race, a small brass key taped inside the back cover. Your grandfather gave this to me before that final mission, Walter said. Told me if anything happened, I should pass it on. I was too scared back then. But not anymore. Walter's hand trembled as he pressed the tiny brass key into Emma's palm. Your grandfather wanted this kept safe, he said. Said if anyone ever came looking, it had to be family. Only then, Emma turned the key over in her hand. It was old, worn smooth from decades of being hidden, yet the engraved number was still sharp, deliberate. What's it open? She asked. Walter shook his head. Never told me. Just said it wasn't for me to know. Only for you, or whoever carried his blood. He gave her a long, steady look. And now that's you. Emma slipped the key into her pocket. For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy with everything unspoken. She wanted to press him for more, but Walter was already fading, his energy spent. His breathing grew shallow. His eyes, still fierce despite age, fixed on her one last time. Don't let them bury him again, he whispered. Promise me, Emma. Don't let them win. I promise, she said softly. Walter closed his eyes, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Then I can rest. Moments later, the steady rise and fall of his chest stilled. Walter had kept her grandfather's secret safe for 75 years, and with his last breath, he had passed a burden to her. 2 days later, Emma sat across from Hilsa in a quiet Zurich cafe. Outside, snow fell against the old glass windows, muffling the world. Inside, Hilsa turned the key over in her hand, studying the engraving with a frown. Emma, do you know what this is? Emma shook her head. Walter didn't say. Only that my grandfather left it for me. Hilsa angled the key toward the light. The tiny number etched into the shaft glimmered. This isn't for a house or a safe. It's a bank key. Swiss bank. Probably Zurich, judging by the style. She tapped the engraved digits with her finger. That's not a serial code. That's a box number. Your grandfather set up a contingency. Emma's heart raced. You mean? Hilsa nodded. Something they couldn't destroy, even if they killed him. Emma pulled out the key Walter had given her. He had hidden this in his journal. Hilsa examined it. Swiss bank. Probably Zurich. There's a number engraved. See, that's your box number. She looked up. Your grandfather set up a contingency. Something they couldn't destroy, even if they killed him. But how? When? Emma asked. The intelligence services had ways. Black accounts, hidden deposits. If Danny was working with intelligence, and I think he was, given what he found, He could have set this up weeks before. Elsa moved to her desk, pulled out a card. This man can help. Swiss banker, very discreet. His grandfather helped resistance fighters hide assets during the war. Emma took the card. Hans Muller, private banking, Zurich. There's one more thing, Elsa said. She pulled out a manila envelope, aged and sealed with wax. October 16th, 1944, a man came to our safe house. American intelligence, but not regular army. He gave me this, said to keep it safe. Said someday someone would come asking about the 3 pilots. He said to give them this. Emma opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, Subject, Operation Prometheus. Classification, Ultra Secret. Date, October 1st, 1944. Phase 1 complete. German medical research personnel successfully extracted and relocated to Facility 7. Cooperation achieved through Project Leverage. Their families held an adjacent compound. Phase 2 initiating. Research to continue under American supervision. Initial subjects acquired from liberated camps. Cover story, treating survivors. Reality, continuing German immunity and enhancement studies under U.S. control. Risk assessment, 3 pilots from 357 showing unusual interest in sector. Garrett asking questions about restricted zones. Recommend permanent solution if they investigate. Authorization, J. Morrison. Colonel, U.S. Army Intelligence. Emma's hands were shaking. They were experimenting on Holocaust survivors, using Nazi doctors to do it. Elsa confirmed. Your grandfather found the proof, and they killed him for it. Emma's phone rang. Walter's nephew. Miss Garrett, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Walter passed away this morning. Heart failure, they said, but Miss Garrett, he was fine yesterday, and his room has been searched. Someone was looking for something. Emma looked at Elsa, who was already standing, moving with surprising speed for her age. They know you're here, the old woman said. We need to go. Now. As they left the back door, Emma saw a black car pulling up to front. 2 men got out, moving with military precision despite their civilian clothes. My car is around the corner, Elsa said. We're going to Zurich. Whatever your grandfather hid in that bank, we're getting it before they do. As they drove away, Emma looked back to see the men breaking into Ilsa's house. 75 years later, and someone was still willing to commit crimes to keep this secret. Why? She asked. Why does it still matter? Elsa's laugh was bitter. Because Operation Prometheus didn't end in 1944. It evolved, changed names, changed locations, but never stopped. Your grandfather found the beginning of something that's still happening. And Emma, some of the people involved are still alive, still powerful, still protected. She handed Emma a loaded pistol from her glove compartment. Your grandfather couldn't shoot back. You can. The road to Zurich stretched ahead, and somewhere behind them, hunters were already following. October 9th, 2019, Swiss border. They ditched Ilsa's car in Strasbourg, switching to a rental under a fake name Elsa produced with disturbing ease. Resistance habits die hard, she'd said. Now approaching Zurich at dawn, Emma kept checking the mirrors while Elsa dozed in the passenger seat, pistol still in her lap. Emma's phone had been buzzing with texts from unknown numbers. Stop now. This is your only warning. Your grandfather was a traitor who had to be silenced. You have 1 hour to turn around. She'd turn the phone off after that. We're here, Ilsa said, suddenly alert as they entered Zurich's financial district. Park underground. Never on the street. The bank was old money incarnate. Marble and brass. Hushed voices, a place where fortunes older than countries slept in vaults. Hans Muller was waiting, having responded to Ilsa's encrypted message sent from a gas station payphone. Miss Garrett, he said quietly, leading them to a private elevator. My grandfather helped yours establish this account in September 1944. We've been maintaining it ever since, per his instructions. For 75 years, the account was well funded and the instructions were very specific. Only blood family could access it, and only with the original key. He glanced at the men in suits watching from a lobby. You have followers. Can they stop us? Emma asked, "Not here. Swiss banking laws are absolute." But afterward, he led them deeper into the building, past modern offices into older sections, pre-war architecture. Your grandfather was paranoid, justifiably, it seems. The box is in our oldest vault. October 15th, 1944. 2:45 p.m. moments before engine failure. Danny had seconds to decide. Below them, the compound sprawled like a cancer on Belgian soil. His camera was almost out of film, but he'd gotten enough. Proof of American trucks at a secret facility. Proof of prisoners in striped uniforms. Proof of what looked like medical experiments continuing under new management. He pulled out his notebook, scrawling fast. They made us disappear. No, that was wrong. They hadn't done it yet, but they would. He could feel it in his bones, the way Bobby felt danger in his teeth. The removed gun cameras, the isolation, the extended fuel tanks that Peterson had warned him about. He tore the page out, folded it small, shoved it inside his jacket just as the engine died. Then, falling through Belgian sky, he made a choice. The microfilm from his camera. He pulled it out, wrapped it in waterproof cloth from his survival kit, and hid it in his boot. If they searched him, they'd find the camera. They might not check his boots. "Stay with me," he called to Frankie and Bobby, though the radios were dead, but they knew. 3 sets of hands fighting dead controls. Work and keep the planes level, to stay together even as they fell. October 9th, 2019. Zurich. Continued. The vault was a cavern of steel and shadow. Box 4447 was small, unremarkable, one among thousands. Emma's key turned smoothly despite the decades. Inside, 3 reels of microfilm, a sealed envelope, and a Colt .45 with 1 bullet missing. Mueller produced a microfilm reader. We keep them for the older accounts. The first reel flickered to life. Documents, hundreds of them. Transfer orders for German medical personnel, signed by Colonel Morrison. Agreements for continued research under American supervision. Lists of test subjects identified only by numbers but with notation. Source from liberated camps. Told they're receiving treatment. "Dear God," Emma whispered. The second reel was photographs. The compound from every angle, the medical facilities, and then the horror. Emaciated figures on operating tables. American doctors observing while German researchers worked. One photo showed Morrison himself watching through observation glass as someone operated on a skeletal child. Your grandfather got inside. Elsa breathed. How? The third reel answered that. Danny's handwritten report. September 30th, 1944. Made contact with an intelligence officer who claims Morrison is running an unauthorized operation. Gave me camera, press credentials. Says he needs proof before he can act. Will attempt to infiltrate Sector 7 on next patrol. October 8th, 1944. Morrison suspects something. Moved up our patrol date. Removing gun cameras. This is a setup. October 14th, 1944. They're going to kill us tomorrow. I know it. Hidden evidence with Swiss account Walter knows about. If something happens, everything's here. Emma opened the envelope. Inside was a list of names, American officials, some she recognized from history books. Senators, generals, future cabinet members, all connected to Operation Prometheus. This is why they're still scared, she said. Some of these families are still in power. Mueller cleared his throat. There's something else. Your grandfather left instructions. If the box was ever opened, I was to give you this. Another envelope, sealed differently. Inside, a single key and an address in Belgium. That's 10 kilometers from where the planes were found, Elsa said, studying it. What's there? According to our records, your grandfather purchased a small plot of land there in September 1944. Through intermediaries, of course. It's been maintained by a local trust. Mueller pulled up modern satellite images. It appears to be just forest now. Emma pocketed everything. We need to go there. It's a trap, Elsa warned. Maybe, but my grandfather hid something else. Something he couldn't put in a bank. October 5th, 2019. Indianapolis. Emma Garrett stood in her childhood home, staring at a trunk she had never seen before. Her father's funeral had been that morning. Sudden heart attack, no warning, gone at 75. Now she was sorting through his things, finding the predictable remnants of a quiet life. Tax returns, photo albums, his reading glasses still bookmarked in a Tom Clancy novel he'd never finish. The trunk was in the attic, shoved behind Christmas decorations and boxes labeled Emma's school things. Military green padlock, her grandfather's name stenciled on the side. Lieutenant Daniel Garrett, USAF. She'd never known it existed. The padlock was rusted but cheap. 3 hits with a hammer, and it cracked open. Inside, the smell hit her first. Old leather and gun oil, something metallic and preserved. Her grandfather's dress uniform was folded with military precision. His wings, his Purple Heart. That confused her. He had never come home wounded. He had never come home at all. Under the medals lay a leather journal, its pages yellowed but intact. The first entry was dated October 1st, 1944. Her grandfather's handwriting was careful and slanted. 2 weeks until we ship out to Bodney. Frankie says the Germans are finished, that we'll be home by Christmas. Bobby believes him. They're good boys, both of them. Best wingman a pilot could ask for. If something happens to me, at least Margaret will know I flew with brothers. Emma sat on the attic floor, reading by the light of her phone. She had grown up knowing only the basics. Her grandfather had died in the war. His plane was never found. Her grandmother Margaret had remarried in 1947 to the man Emma had called Grandpa Bill. But this journal made Danny Garrett real. 24 years old, Mrs. Pregnant Wife, worried about his friends. She flipped ahead, scanning entries about missions, close calls, descriptions of England that sounded like another planet. Then she found October 14th, 1944. The handwriting was different here, pressed hard into the page. Something's wrong with tomorrow's patrol. Change at the last minute. No explanation. We're being sent over Sector 7, which has been restricted for 2 months. Colonel Morrison called me paranoid, but Frankie noticed it too. The coordinates don't match any known German positions. We're not hunting anything out there. Bobby's nervous. The kid's got instincts like a cat, and he's been pacing all evening. Says his teeth hurt, which is what he always says when something bad's coming. Told him it's routine patrol, nothing special. Didn't mention that someone came for our gun cameras this afternoon. Took them for maintenance. In 13 months, nobody's ever touched our gun cameras before patrol. If something happens tomorrow, tell Margaret I... The entry stopped mid-sentence. Emma turned the page. Blank. Every page after October 14th was empty, except for one thing. A photograph tucked into the back cover. 3 young men in flight suits, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. Someone had written on the back, Danny, Frankie, Bobby. October 14th, 1944. Last night at the Eagle's Nest. The last night. Her phone buzzed. Her sister Karen texting about estate paperwork. Emma ignored it, staring at the photograph. Her grandfather was a tall one in the middle, movie star handsome with dark hair, and her father's exact same crooked smile. Frankie Holbrook on his left, stalkier, laughing at something off camera. Bobby Whelan on the right, barely out of his teens, trying to look tough, but his eyes gave him away. He was scared. They had all been scared. Emma pulled out her laptop, searching for information about the missing patrol. The official record was sparse. 3 P-51 Mustangs lost over Belgium. October 15th, 1944. No enemy contact reported. Search efforts unsuccessful. Presumed shot down by anti-aircraft fire. But her grandfather had written they weren't hunting anything. The route had been changed. The gun cameras removed. She kept digging, cross-referencing squadron records, mission logs, anything digitized from the 357 Fighter Group. Then she found it, buried in a database of declassified documents. A report filed October 16th, 1944, by Colonel James Morrison. Lieutenants Garrett Holbrook and Whelan failed to return from routine patrol. Last radio contact at 1447 indicated no enemy engagement. Search teams found no wreckage in assigned patrol sector. Recommendation: list as MIA. Presumed Kia. No further resources to be allocated to recovery. One day, they had searched for one day. Emma found herself angry, suddenly, irrationally furious at this Colonel Morrison, who had given up on 3 men so quickly. She searched his name, found his service record. Promoted to general after the war. Died in 1978, full military honors. Buried at Arlington. But there was something else. A footnote in his biography. Morrison had been investigated in 1946 for irregularities in wartime intelligence operations, but cleared of all charges. The details were still classified. Emma barely slept that night. The journal sat on her nightstand, the photograph tucked safely back between its pages. She kept hearing her grandfather's words in her head. If something happens tomorrow, tell Margaret I... The unfinished sentence gnawed at her. What had he meant to say? The next morning, she called Karen. "Did you know about the trunk?" she asked. "No," Karen said. "Dad never mentioned it." "You think Grandpa Bill knew?" Emma hesitated. "Maybe, but why would Dad keep it hidden? Why now?" Karen sighed. We just buried him yesterday. Don't start digging into ghosts. Dad probably had his reasons. Maybe he wanted to protect us from it." Emma looked at the journal lying open on her desk. Protect them from what? She spent the next few days scanning the entire thing, uploading high-resolution images to her computer and cross-referencing with online archives. She reached out to forums dedicated to World War II aviation history, carefully omitting the more disturbing details. The responses came quickly, armchair historians eager to discuss the P-51 Mustang, the 357 Fighter Group, and the Eagle's Nest pub where pilots gather the night before missions. One response stood out. A user named Nido77 posted, "Sector 7 wasn't German territory. It was cordoned off by Allied command after August 44. No patrols authorized. Something classified went on there. Be careful what you're looking for." Emma sent a private message asking what they meant. The reply came an hour later. "Look up Operation Morningstar. Not in the official records. Start with Morrison." She tried. Nothing. No declassified files. No references in books or articles. Just a scattering of conspiracy theory blogs, all half-baked and contradictory. One claimed Operation Morningstar was an experimental weapons program. Another said it was about recovering something the Germans had found. A third insisted it was connected to the so-called Foo Fighters, strange lights Allied pilots had reported seeing in the skies over Europe. Emma closed her laptop, rubbing her temples. It was all too much. But that night, she dreamed of her grandfather. He was in his flight suit, standing next to his Mustang. Behind him stretched a dark Belgian field under a cold October sky. He raised his hand as if to wave, but his face was pale, his eyes hollow. Then he spoke, though his mouth never moved. "They made us disappear." Emma woke up gasping, her heart hammering. She turned on the light. The journal lay on her nightstand, but something was different. The photograph, the one tucked into the back, was on top of the journal, as though it had been placed there. She hadn't touched it since scanning it. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Nido77. "Do you want to know the truth? Meet me." There was an address in Dayton, Ohio. October 12, 2019. Dayton, Ohio. Emma sat in her car across the street from a dimly lit diner. She felt foolish. This was the kind of thing her sister would scold her for, meeting anonymous strangers from the internet. But the address was only 2 hours from Indianapolis, and she had to know. Inside, the diner smelled of burnt coffee and frying bacon. A man sat in the corner booth, mid-60s, wiry frame, military haircut gone gray. He raised a hand when she walked in. "Emma Garrett?" She froze. "How do you know my name?" "You posted under your own username." Didn't take much to put the pieces together. He extended his hand. "Tom Redding, Air Force Intelligence, retired." Emma shook it cautiously and sat down. "So you're Nido77. He nodded. "I served under men who served with Morrison. Heard whispers about Morningstar my whole career. When you posted the coordinates, I knew exactly what you stumbled onto." Emma leaned forward. "What was it?" Redding stirred his coffee, staring into the swirling black. Morningstar wasn't about hunting Germans. It was about something else. Something we found. Radar picked it up first. Objects moving at impossible speeds over Belgium. Not aircraft, not anything we knew. Command wanted answers. Morrison was in charge of covering it up. Emma swallowed hard. You're talking about UFOs? Redding didn't flinch. That's what people call them now. Back then, they called them Foo Fighters. Bright lights in the sky, following our planes, darting around like fireflies. Pilots reported them constantly. Officially, Command dismissed it as hallucinations or German secret weapons. Unofficially, they scrambled missions into restricted zones like Sector 7 to intercept them. Emma's skin prickled. And my grandfather? Redding's gaze hardened. He and his wingmen saw something they weren't supposed to. Morrison couldn't let that story get out. 3 planes go missing. No bodies, no wreckage. Easy enough to write off as anti-aircraft fire. Except someone buried those planes. That's not a crash. That's concealment. Emma felt her throat tighten. Why bury them instead of destroying them? Redding hesitated. Because the planes and the pilots were evidence. Evidence of what they saw. Maybe evidence of what they brought back. Emma shook her head. This is insane. Is it? Redding asked quietly. You've seen the journal. You know Morrison lied. Why do you think your father kept it hidden all these years? Some truths are dangerous. Emma left the diner trembling. She drove back to Indianapolis in silence, Redding's words echoing in her mind. Some truths are dangerous. When she got home, she found her sister waiting on the porch. Where the hell have you been? Karen demanded. Emma didn't answer. She clutched the journal tighter against her chest, as though it were the only thing tethering her to reality. That night, she opened her laptop again. She searched deeper into the archives, chasing every mention of Foo Fighters, Morningstar, Morrison. Most led nowhere. But one led to a digitized transcript of a 1947 Senate hearing on military appropriations. Buried in the appendix was a single-line item. Project Morningstar, $2.3 million, Office of Strategic Services, Belgium, 1944 to 1945. It wasn't much, but it was proof. October 18, 2019. Indianapolis. Emma couldn't stop thinking about what Redding had told her. The way he said it, so calm, so certain, made it harder to dismiss as conspiracy theory rambling. But she needed more than whispers. She needed proof. She spent the next week buried in research. National Archives databases, military history forums, digitized newspapers. She even filed a FOIA request for documents relating to Operation Morningstar and Sector 7. She doubted it would yield anything. Those requests took years, and most came back heavily redacted, but it was a start. At night, she pored over her grandfather's journal. She read the same passages again and again, searching for details she might have missed. The unfinished sentence haunted her. If something happens tomorrow, tell Margaret I... Tell her what? On October 19th, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a manila envelope containing a single object, a black and white photograph. It showed 3 P-51 Mustangs in tight formation, flying low over a Belgian countryside. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary mission photo. But in the upper corner of the image, half blurred by motion, was something else. A sphere of light, bright, smooth, metallic-looking, as if reflecting sunlight. It hovered in the sky, just above the Mustangs. Emma's hand shook as she turned the photo over. On the back, someone had written in neat block letters, Sector 7. October 15th, 1944. Her breath caught, the day they disappeared. She stuffed the envelope back into the box and locked it in her desk drawer. Only one person could have sent it, Tom Redding. But how had he gotten it? That night, she called him. You sent me a photograph. I didn't, he said flatly. Emma hesitated. Then who did? A pause. Then Redding's voice dropped. Listen to me carefully. If someone else has that photograph, it means they're watching you. Stop digging, Emma. Burn the journal. Forget Morningstar. His urgency rattled her. Why? because the people who covered this up are gone, but the institutions remain. The Air Force, the Pentagon, agencies you've never heard of. They don't want this story out. And if you push too far, they'll make sure it doesn't get out, ever. Emma's throat went dry. Are you saying they'd come after me? I'm saying they already have. The line went dead. The next morning, Emma noticed a black SUV idling across the street from her house. Two men sat inside, not looking at her, not looking at anything, just waiting. Her pulse quickened. She pulled the curtains shut and backed away from the window. Karen called an hour later. Hey, do you want to come by? I'll bring dinner. Emma almost said yes, but then thought better of it. She didn't want Karen anywhere near this. No, I'm fine, Emma lied. Just tired. That night, she heard footsteps outside her house. Soft, deliberate. She turned off all the lights and crouched by the window, peeking through the blinds. The SUV was gone, but a figure stood at the edge of her yard, watching. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She fumbled for her phone, but when she looked back, the figure was gone. She barely slept, the journal clutched tight in her hands like a shield. October 20th, 2019. She drove to Dayton again, desperate to find Redding. The diner where they had met was closed, its windows dark. She called his number, disconnected. She checked the local phone book. No listing. It was as though he had vanished. On the drive back, her phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Stop looking. Last warning. She pulled over, heart pounding. She wanted to go to the police, but what could she say? That someone was sending her mysterious photographs of glowing orbs from World War II? That men in black SUVs were following her? They'd think she was crazy. Instead, she went home, locked every door, and spread the contents of the trunk across her living room floor. The uniform, the medals, the journal, the photograph. She needed answers, and the only place left to find them was Belgium. She booked a flight that night. October 25th, 2019. Brussels, Belgium. The air was damp and gray as Emma stepped out of the taxi onto a quiet country road. Ahead stretched farmland, flat fields bordered by hedgerows and scattered barns. This was Sector 7. She followed the directions she had printed from an old excavation report. The 2009 wind farm project that had uncovered the 3 Mustangs. The site was abandoned now, the turbine standing silent in the mist. She climbed over a fence and crossed the field, her boots sinking into damp soil. After half an hour of searching, she found it, a rectangular depression in the ground, overgrown with weeds. This was where they had been buried. Emma knelt, pressing her palm to the earth. Grandpa! A breeze rustled the grass. The world felt impossibly still. Then she noticed something, a carving in the stone wall of the pit, half hidden by moss. She scraped it clean with her hand, revealing 6 words etched deep into the rock. They made us disappear. Forgive us. Her breath caught. The same words her grandfather had clutched on that journal page. She snapped photographs with her phone, her hands trembling. When she stood, she saw someone watching her. A man stood on a ridge above the pit, dressed in dark clothing, face shadowed by the mist. For a moment, their eyes met. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into fog. Emma scrambled up the ridge, but when she reached the top, the man was gone. Only empty fields stretched in every direction. She stood there, shaking, clutching her phone. She was no longer just chasing a family mystery. She was caught in something vast, something dangerous, something her grandfather had died trying to warn them about. And now, it had followed her across the ocean. October 26, 2019. Brussels, Belgium. Emma woke in her hotel room to the sound of church bells echoing through the damp autumn air. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the words carved into stone. They made us disappear. Forgive us. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new email, no sender address. The subject line was blank. The message contained only one attachment, a scanned document. She hesitated before opening it, then tapped. The document was a memo dated October 18, 1944. marked top secret in faded black ink. Addressed to Colonel James Morrison. Effective immediately, you are authorized to restrict patrol routes over Sector 7. Mission codename, Morning Star. Objective, intercept and contain anomalous aerial phenomena reported by multiple squadrons. Recovery and denial protocols are to be executed without exception. Under no circumstances is contact or engagement to be acknowledged in official records. All gun camera footage is to be seized and destroyed. This directive supersedes standing orders. Signed, Brigadier General Henry E. Sturbridge. Emma's chest tightened. This was it, the smoking gun. Proof that the mission had never been routine, that her grandfather had been sent into a trap. Her hands trembled as she zoomed in on Morrison's signature at the bottom. The man who had written her grandfather off as MIA, presumed Kia. The man who had buried 3 planes and 3 pilots rather than admit what they saw. The email vanished before she could forward it. 1 second it was there, the next her inbox refreshed to empty, deleted remotely. She sat frozen, staring at the screen. Someone was watching her in real time. Later that day, she visited the Royal Museum of the Armed Forces in Brussels. She walked past rows of restored aircraft, polished metal gleaming under fluorescent lights. A docent noticed her staring at a P-51 Mustang on display. "Beautiful machine, isn't it?" he said in French-accented English. Emma nodded. "My grandfather flew one." The man's eyes lit with interest. "Ah, American pilots. Many came through Belgium. Very brave." She hesitated, then asked, "Do you know anything about Sector 7? About strange missions during the war?" The docent's smile faded. His gaze flicked around the hangar, as if checking who was listening. Then he leaned close. "You should not ask about that." "Why not?" "Because some things are not in the history books for a reason. If your grandfather was sent there, you will not find answers in museums. You will find in the ground, or not at all." Emma swallowed hard. "What happened there?" The docent's face tightened. "There are stories. Lights in the sky. Whole squadron seeing the same thing. But the records? Gone. Buried. Like your grandfather." He turned away before she could ask more. October 28th, 2019. She returned to the field in Sector 7, determined to dig deeper, literally. She brought a rented ground-penetrating radar unit, the kind archaeologists used. For hours she swept the device back and forth across the soil, watching the screen for anomalies. At first, nothing. Then, shapes, buried deep metallic, arranged in a circle. Not planes. Larger, smoother. Her breath caught. She marked the spot with stakes, then dropped to her knees, clawed at the soil with her bare hands until her fingers bled. Just beneath the surface, she uncovered a fragment of curved metal, smooth and seamless, unlike any alloy she had seen. It pulsed faintly with residual heat. She recoiled. The metal looked as if it had been buried for decades, yet it felt alive. A sound made her freeze. Engines. She looked up to see 2 black SUVs bouncing down the dirt road toward her. Panic surged. She grabbed the fragment, shoved it into her backpack, and sprinted across the field. The SUVs skidded to a stop. Doors slammed. Men in dark suits poured out, shouting in English. "Stop. Put the bag down." Emma ran faster, her lungs burning. Shots cracked through the air, dirt kicking up around her feet. She dove into the hedgerows, crawling until her palms were raw, then staggered to her feet and ran until voices faded behind her. When she finally stopped, chest heaving, she was alone on a country road, mud-caked and trembling. The fragment in her backpack hummed softly, as though it contained a heartbeat. October 31st, 2019. Indianapolis. Emma returned home in silence. She told no one, not Karen, not the forums, not even herself out loud, what she had found. But every night, she laid the fragment on her desk. Under lamplight it glowed faintly, colors shifting like oil on water. Sometimes when she touched it, she swore she heard voices. Faint, distant, like pilots calling out across a broken radio. "Frankie, brake left. I can't shake him. Bobby, stay tight." Her grandfather's voice. She snapped her hand back, heart pounding. The fragment went dark. She locked in the drawer, but the voices followed her into sleep. Dreams of glowing spheres, of Mustangs suspended in the sky like flies in amber, of men screaming as the light swallowed them whole. November 2nd, 2019. Emma visited her grandmother Margaret's grave. She knelt in the frost, the journal clutched against her chest. "I found him," she whispered. "I found what they tried to hide." The wind sighed through the trees, carrying a faint echo, so soft she thought she imagined it. "Tell Margaret I love her." Tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. The unfinished sentence, finally complete. She pressed the journal to the headstone. She knew Grandpa. She always knew. But Emma also knew something else now. The disappearance of her grandfather and his wingmen wasn't just a wartime tragedy. It was part of something far bigger, something that still had guardians willing to kill to keep it buried. And sitting in her drawer at home was proof the world wasn't ready to see. For now, she told herself she would keep it safe. But deep down, she knew the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. Because secrets like these don't disappear. They wait, and when the time is right, they return. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with someone who loves mysteries as much as you do. And let us know in the comments, what do you think really happened to them?